Welcome to the Why Didn't I Know podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jenny Martin, and in this episode, we're talking about sex, energy fields, and the paranormal. So this topic about sex and energy fields and the paranormal, am I going to go into some woo-woo discussion? Well, actually, I'm not. I'm going to talk about some of the lesser known information that relates to these things. First of all, most people know what I'm talking about by paranormal, but let's just be really specific. I mean anything from telepathy to being clairvoyant, to being psychic, all of those abilities that are beyond what science, materialist science, can help us to understand. And when I say materialist science, what I mean is science that only studies consciousness, the mind, from the perspective of what's happening in the brain. Mainstream science doesn't account for the fact that consciousness is beyond the brain. If you've ever watched any of the stories of people who have died, clinically died, and then been revived, and during the time where they were clinically dead, they might have been in the operating room, on the operating table, and all their vital signs stopped. So they were actually clinically pronounced dead. But during the time that they were dead, they observed things in the room, in the operating room, and they could exactly hear what the different medical people were saying about them, and they would be able to share that information afterwards before talking to anyone. So there was no way they would have known what went on in the room when they were clinically dead. But for the most part, when we're talking about these paranormal ideas, the reason why they're called paranormal is they're thought of as beyond normal. And I suggest to you that in earlier times in our collective history, these things weren't seen as beyond normal. They were seen as quite normal. When I researched people in my own country, in Ireland, I realized there is a history of the people there having this, what we call sixth sense about their loved ones, where they were able to communicate over long distances via mind. The person would just have this innate sense to go and find out how a particular person was, and they didn't know why they were being led to do that. Well, that's what we're talking about. And it is documented that during the First World War, when a mother had a son that was fighting in the war, and the son was killed on the battlefield, before the authorities could actually inform the family that the son had passed away, the mother would know. She would know not after he was dead. She would know the instant he was killed. Well, how is that? And how is that even possible? Well, this is where we get into talking about the concept of energy fields. And, we have gone through school in our biology class. We're told about our cells. We're told about the biochemistry. We're told about all of these parts of us that relate to material science. But what we're not told is that there is waves of energy that actually coordinate all of the biochemistry within us. So consider this. In 1937, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to a Hungarian biochemist. And what that biochemist won the Nobel Prize for was telling us that molecules in our body do not need to touch to interact. Molecules can actually interact through vibration, through becoming entrained and coupling, resonating. And this process of frequency and resonance happens not just in the human body, it also is the basis for how you're able to use your key for your car, your fob key, the wireless entry to get into your car. When you press that key fob and you're across a parking lot and it knows exactly which car to open, that's because of resonance. The frequency is the same resonant frequency as has been programmed into your fob key, and it only opens that car. Well, that's how your body operates. It operates based on vibration. And this is the key. This really is the key to understanding why we can actually do things that defy what we should be able to do as separate physical beings. We are actually vibration. Our consciousness goes beyond our physical being. And this is why sex in ancient societies was always the key to unlock this paranormal potential, because sex and love open up this vast potential of our energy fields. When you realize this aspect of sexuality, it even changes who you're attracted to. So a lot of times the person that society would say is physically more beautiful, has more confidence externally in terms of how they present themselves, how they come across, how they hold a conversation, they have a good job, they're educated, all of those things. However, when we're talking about this paranormal side of things, none of that is going to relate to whether the person has a potent energy field. They could have all of the attractiveness, all of the confidence, look good on paper, but there's something beyond all of those things that you initially register when you meet someone. There is a sense that you can tap into that your logical mind can't even figure out. It is not something that you can ever understand with your linear mind. This aspect of connecting with other people only happens when you allow yourself to get out of your mind, your literal thinking mind, and to actually be more physically present. So there's an aspect of this of learning to be more present moment aware, learning to be more physically aware of what's going on from the neck down, not just in your sexual centers, but your entire body. So learning to use your five senses. Our five senses are not cut off from higher information from other dimensions. At a certain point in my own understanding, I was told that your senses block you from spiritual awakening, that you have to overcome the senses. And I now know that that's simply not true, because our senses actually work also based on vibration. Our senses are part of this vibrational field that we have around us and within us. When we develop this, this is when we are able to access the paranormal. The paranormal aspect of this is that it's a spiritual path, really. Sacred sexuality is a spiritual path, because you are growing in what could be seen as abilities of a spiritual master or abilities of someone that's highly evolved, where they don't necessarily always need to use words to communicate. They can communicate through the mind. And this happens through building this field, because the field around you is not just energy, it's information. And this communicates with your partner during sex. The field of information around you links up to the field of information about your partner. This is why it is ideal to actually be in love with the other person that you're having sex with, because when you understand the level of depth that you can get to, you don't want to share that level, like your entire soul, with just some person that you're not going to really have in your life very long. It's a real level of connection. And so the idea is you're trusting, bearing your soul really to someone who can be trusted. And this is where we need to use our human discernment. If the person gives off any signs of being disrespectful, of not following through, just any sense that you get that this is not a person that you can trust, well, then to honor yourself not to go forward in that relationship, because the level that is possible to get to, let me tell you, and this is written in the Gospel of Philip, and I know it myself personally, you never disconnect from that person. Now, thankfully, I'm saying that about my soulmate, so I'm grateful to be never disconnected from this person. But what if you connected at this very deep psychic level with someone that was had bad intentions towards you, was psychically damaging to you, towards you? There are ways to disentangle with them, but it takes something. It takes more than you just working on the human level. It takes working through some energetic work and some work at a deeper spiritual level, because this person can actually be connected to your energy field in a very deep way. And yes, do predators do this? Yes, they do all the time. They find victims where they can take their life force energy by connecting to their energy field. So that does happen. And that's why being aligned with the spiritual path, really having a connection with the divine, is so, so important, because our human mind might tell us, oh, that person's so attractive. Oh, that person's into all these things. Oh, I really like them. But that's what our human mind is going to give us, that type of information. Your spirit, if you've been doing spiritual practice, if you've been communing with the divine through meditation, your spirit will tell you, okay, this is not the person for you. And there can be a complete disconnect between what your spirit says and what your human mind thinks is good. And always, 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 your spirit knows what your human mind cannot see, which is what is going to eventually turn out to be beneficial for you, or a person that's going to turn out to be very harmful to your soul and spirit. By the way, if you're listening to this before February 20th, on February 20th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, I am doing a webinar. There's no charge for it, but you do need to register, a webinar through Zoom, and it's all about sourcing from spirit. If you go to my website, drjennymartin.com, there's a banner at the top, and you can click to register, or below this podcast episode, I'll have the link. But if this is after February 20th, then it's past. There's a fellow that is no longer alive, but his name was Ingo Swann. And he had all sorts of ability to do paranormal things. He could remote view, he could do telepathy, he could move things with his mind, all of these different things. And the Central Intelligence Agency was studying him, and they wanted to know how this happens. Well, what was discovered but not disclosed by the CIA is that sexual energy showed up when these paranormal abilities were present. And Ingo Swann has reported on that separately, that all throughout these experiments that showed paranormal activity, there was a sexual charge. It's not like the people were having sex to get this paranormal ability to be activated, but when the person was involved in producing this paranormal effect, along with it, a sexual arousal ran through their body. The feeling of sexual arousal, we need to think beyond just chemistry in our brain and body. That is the materialist view of science. We need to think in terms of vibration and frequency. And for instance, there's a book called In the Newborn Year, Our Changing Awareness After Childbirth. And the woman who wrote it talked about the fact that she had worked helping deliver babies, and she had her own baby. And she has story after story in this book of women that have had experiences of what you would call psychic, in terms of connecting with what their child was doing in another room. They just knew something was happening with their child, that they had to go check on the child. They just had an inner knowing. And then they got there in time before the child really did something that could have been dangerous. It's that sixth sense. And she documents all this throughout her book and shows that there's a developing energy field that is extended to include the child. When you have the child and you're connected to it emotionally, what you're doing is growing that electromagnetic field with the child. It's actually something happening, a paranormal effect. And this happens after childbirth. This is why the woman's cervix, the woman's body, is really part of this awakening to this higher consciousness. Activating the cervix through a sexual experience can give you the ability to know things about other people, to pick up information that you wouldn't even know about other people as a result of reading the field. It's not like you're trying, it's not like you're efforting. Information comes to you about the other person. And there's a distinct difference between having regular sex and then having sex that expands your energy field, because you're tapped into a different awareness. I didn't realize this at first when this started to happen, but over time, now that I'm looking back at it, I realize, wow, I just took it for granted that now I could sense things, see things, experience things. You could say intuit things about other people that I wouldn't know otherwise. And this is part of reading the energy field. One of the things that reading the energy field does is it gives you the sense of the other person, an empathetic sense that you wouldn't otherwise have. When your energy field is shrunk more, you're aware of yourself, possibly. Not everyone is, though. If you've had, for instance, sexual trauma, you might not even be aware of what's going on in your body. You might feel numb from the neck down. So not everyone has awareness in their body. That's for sure. Can it be changed? 100%. You can go from numbness to learning how to be back in your body. Yeah, absolutely you can. But what we're talking about here, this paranormal effect, is beyond you just being aware of your own body. It's being aware of the larger energy field when you're interacting with other people. And let me just say, because I think it needs to be said, this is not codependency or people pleasing. This is not second guessing someone that you know in your life and you've known them over time, and you think if you say a certain thing or if you do a certain thing, that's what they want because you're second guessing them. That is not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about tapping into a level of awareness about the other person that you may or may not act on. You may not do anything with that information because you're not being led to, but at least you have the information and it gives you more of an insight. And I can tell you one of the biggest things that it's done for me is it's made me not a judgmental person. So it's easy to have judgment about people. We all do it. And I used to do that a lot more often, but I don't do that now. I really don't, because I can sense where that person is coming from for the most part a lot more easily, because it's almost like you can see life through their eyes, which is, you could say, the definition of empathy. When you're sensing through the energy field, it allows you to drop really your own awareness and your own perception of life, which is subjective, and it allows you to see life through the other person's eyes because you're connecting to them energetically. Now, this is different from connecting with your lover's energy field through sex. When you connect with your lover's energy field, you're completely open and you're allowing a merging of both of your energy fields. In normal life, when you're just conversing with someone and there's no sexual energy involved at all, then you're not merging with anybody. You're keeping your energy field intact. But because you awakened your energy field during sex, you take that new awareness with you everywhere. It's not like you're taking a sexual vibe with you everywhere. You're not being sexy or trying to be sexual everywhere. But once you've expanded your energy field through the sexual activity, you walk around in the world with an expanded energy field. And you're able to have just regular platonic conversations, but with a deeper awareness of the other person, a deeper connection. And people will feel like you get them, you understand them. And part of the reason why you understand them more is you're not filtering through your own judgment. You're receiving who this person is directly from what they tell you, but also what their energy tells you. And that is infinitely helpful as you go about your life and use discernment. So this is why we do spiritual practice. This is why sex is a spiritual practice. This is why your own meditation prayer practices, to build up your field so that when you do interact with someone who even for a second thinks they're going to take your energy, they're not. They're just simply not. They can't, because you don't allow it. Energetically, you don't allow it. You have protection from your connection to a higher power. And also you make logical choices of not hanging out with people that have that effect on you, that have that detrimental effect on you. So I'll leave that with you for now. And thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to talking with you on the next episode. I invite you to go right now to either Apple or Spotify and leave a review for this podcast. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.